All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm a Muslim, so I begin all things in the name of God, giving praise and honor to God, the one God to whom all holy praise before the due. We thank Him for all of His prophets from Abraham to Muhammad. I thank Him for my leader and teacher, the Honorable Minister of Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having us. I'm Minister Randy Muhammad. I'm the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 11. I'm also the founder and the executive director of Torchlight Recovery, Inc. And so we have a team that is out here doing outreach in the Nubian Square area, providing recovery support services to our people that are suffering with substance use disorders, homelessness, and mental health. I grew up in Roxbury. This is my hood. I used to hang out in Orchard Park back in the late 80s, early 90s during the crack epidemic. I was caught up with that whole era of gangbanging when that whole thing started. Prior to that, going way back, I see my man Domingo DeRosa here, and we go way back to Mason School, Mason Pool, and the park over there where he's been serving as a coach and been doing a lot of great work. But anyways, yeah, growing up in this neighborhood, you know, I'm a product of this neighborhood, and I've seen it go through many different changes, right? I have family members that are still out here that are actually caught up, right? That are struggling with the disease of addiction. And so that's my passion for doing this work and going out there, because we have to save lives. We're losing a lot of people to addiction, and fentanyl now being the latest iteration of the drugs that is permeating our community, creating this crisis. So what I want to do is talk about, for the few minutes that I'm here, just take a look at the historical context of drugs, particularly in the Black community, right? We know that recently now we're under what they're calling the opioid crisis and epidemic. But in the Black communities, drugs have been a problem going back to the 50s and the 60s, right? When heroin was being brought in. And at that time, you know, it wasn't being called a disease. Our people were being labeled as junkies, right? There wasn't a whole lot of treatment options. There wasn't a whole lot of program options. There was only the criminal justice option, right? And in truth, back then, if we look at, how many of y'all seen the movie American Gangster? It talked about the story of Frank Lucas. Frank Lucas was one of the major drug dealers in New York who was bringing in tons of heroin. They made a movie about Frank Lucas, the American Gangster. I got a chance to meet Frank Lucas when he came home after being incarcerated. But he said that he was bringing in the heroin on military airplanes, right? So I just want us to think about that. Now in the movies, and if you let Frank Lucas tell you, he outwitted the military. Right? They didn't know what he was doing. He was just that slick. If you believe that, and I got a bridge to sell you in London. That was the 50s and the 60s. The Black community was being targeted, and drugs were being used as a tool of oppression, right? That there's an element of this thing that's not an accident, nor a coincidence. Fast forward to the 80s, my era, with the crack epidemic. How many of y'all heard of Rick Ross? Not the rapper, but the real one. Freeway Ricky. Freeway Rick Ross. How many of y'all seen the movie Kill the Messenger? How many of y'all read the book Dark Alliance? So Freeway Ricky, who is the real drug kingpin that the rapper Rick Ross took the name from, his claim to fame was he was the main connect that was bringing crack cocaine and supplying crack cocaine to the Bloods and the Crips in LA. Rick Ross got caught, he went to jail. But while he was in jail, he found out through investigative journalist
Gary Webb.
Gary Webb was an investigative journalist with the Mercury News. And he found out through a co-defendant of Rick Ross that his number one supplier was an agent of the CIA. Now, how many of y'all ever heard of the Iran-Contra scandal?
Right.
Look it up. Our government was involved in bringing cocaine that turned to crack that was being sold in black communities and illegal guns that were being sold to Iran. Now, the focus of the Iran-Contra scandal was the guns being sold to Iran. And almost a footnote of that whole drama was that, yeah, drugs were coming into the black community, but no one really cared about that. Oliver North got in trouble. Go look it up. Gary Webb broke the story about the Dark Alliance with the drugs coming into the black community. He wrote an article, became a book, and it became a movie. He was found, how many of y'all seen the movie? Any of y'all seen the movie? They found him dead in a hotel with 2 bullets to the back of his head. They said it was a suicide. So he shot himself in the back of the head one time and it didn't work, so he did it again. Right? So we know that the Dark Alliance is real and that this has been the history of drugs being brought particularly in the black community. And the drugs was never a problem until the pharmaceutical companies got greedy and now the opioids reached out into white communities, and it became a big problem when in suburbia, young white boys and girls, men and women, right, began to be affected by the opioids. Then it became a crisis. Then it became a lot of, we got to do something about this. We got to have programs. We got to support drug treatment, rehab centers, right? And that's good. That's a great thing. Why is fentanyl so easily available in the black community? It's just a question. Now, it's a problem that's affecting all of us. But the solution is going to require all of us working together. So I'm proud to be a part of this team, to be a part of this program, because it's going to take law enforcement, community organizations, community members, nonprofit organizations. We all have our role to do. And so with our team that is operating out in Nubian Square, we have been able to come. We were called in about 4 years ago when the problems that folks were seeing down in Master Cass started to encroach on the business district in Nubian Square. And they reached out to me as the minister of Muhammad Mosque number 11 because they know about the FOI, which is the men that belong to Islam in North America. They know that many of the men that are in the Nation of Islam that are part of the FOI, we come from these streets. I personally have served and have been a chaplain working in the prison system for about 30 years now, right? After I turned my life around. And so a lot of the brothers that we know come from prison, come from the streets, but have turned their lives around, are clean, and now are out in the community being an asset, not a liability. And, you know, we real serious about ours. So when they reached out to us, it was with the mind state, come down there and clean it up. Like we was gonna come like a military force. and just clean it up. Get off the block. I said, no, we're not doing that. We was having meetings right downstairs in Soleil's. And I said, the people that are out here in Nubian Square, for the most part at that time, I said, these are people that's from this community. This is their community. So we're not coming in here like some Gestapo force to clean our people out because maybe you have a vision of gentrifying Nubian Square and you want to get rid of the people that actually live here to clean it up to bring something else in. I said, no, we're not coming to do that, but what we will do, we'll come down and we'll meet the needs of the people that are there. We're going to make sure that those that are looking for help can get help. So what we did is we started to coordinate resources with all of those that are saying that they're providing services to the community. We started to hold them accountable by calling them into the meeting and making sure that the people who were out in the streets had the time or had the services that they need. And so that's the approach that got to happen. Last point I'll make, I know it's time, but it's going to take all of us. The outreach workers, we can do our part, right? But law enforcement got to do their part as well, right? And we're dealing with balancing. There's a delicate balance. We know we have criminal justice reform and that laws have changed. And so this is the pushback that we're getting from law enforcement and saying, we out there, but we can't lock people up for loitering. That's not a crime. And if we lock them up, they're going to be right back in the street because the judge is not holding them accountable. We need to have a conversation that involves the judges, the DAs, the police, and the community. I'm an advocate for criminal. Matter of fact, I was leading the charge for criminal justice reform. Before I came here, I came from a parole board hearing for one of the men that I ministered to that served 35 years, and I went to speak on his behalf because I want him to come back to the community. So I've been leading the charge, one of those leading the charge around criminal justice reform, but we can't allow, right, criminal justice reform to be scapegoated for us allowing and creating, right, an environment where we can have an open-air drug market and we act like we can't do nothing about it. Right? Loitering may not be an offense that you can lock someone up for, but what about using drugs openly, shooting drugs in the wide open? And whenever you go out there and see a large group of people congregating, Massive Castle, Nubian Scale, guess what? The drug dealer's right there in the midst. How are we allowing that to happen?
The hospital gets some drugs.
So we have to do a better job at coordinating all of our resources to stop it, and we can stop it. Because one thing I noticed when I pulled up here today, it was really clean out there. Now, if you are out here every day, it don't look that way. And last week, 2 weeks ago, we had an emergency meeting because the uptick in what was going on out there. And our outreach coordinator initiated an initiative with all the outreach teams that we was gonna all come together on that Tuesday and go out to make an impact. And when we went out there that Tuesday, it was clean, right? What happened? What I'm talking now about accountability and everybody playing their part. And a sweep went out and the area looked different. If we could do it then, we could do it every day. If we did it today, we could do it every day. So I'm saying, let's work together so that we can hold each other accountable. Because at the end of the day, these are lives. And we can't just turn a blind eye when we see what's going on and act like we are powerless and can't do nothing to stop it. We can, we must, and we will. Thank you for allowing me these few minutes. Have a blessed day.
We want to thank you so much for telling your story, for being here with us. And I know that we're short on time, so I hope everybody understands. Yes, I'm going to give people 15 minutes. So the next person I'm bringing up to speak is someone who I came across through my travels of Achieve Greatness. And he was someone who was incarcerated for 20 years. He was someone who was actually selling right here in Boston. He was someone who, when he was incarcerated, lost his mother and his youngest brother to fentanyl poisoning. He has not only turned his life around, he is now working with youth, but I consider him to be a partner with me, because this is exactly what Achieve Greatness is about. I'm not looking at your color. To me, you're a human being. And whatever we can do together is what we need to do, because that's the human part of all of this. So I want to bring up Devon, and he's going to tell his story.
Peace. I know I don't have that much time, and honestly, I don't have enough time anyway to tell you my whole story. I'm going to say a few things up here, but before I say anything, I would not be standing here today if it wasn't for the grace of God.
That's right.
As I understand him to be. There's an individual by the name of Allah Fuqan. The world will know his name. If I have to do it by myself, which I know I won't have to, I will. It's only through his grace that I'm standing here today, because he looked me in my eyes 18 years ago in a prison library and said, "I love you, black man." Peace. I need y'all to help me count real quick, please. Count to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's how many years I spent in prison, like Miss Paula said. I spent 20 years in prison justly. I'm responsible for taking a young man's life on July 19th of the year 2000 at 12:37 p.m. I shot this man twice, once in the chest and once in the stomach. As a result, he died. When this man fell to the ground in slow motion, I watched his body fall and I laughed. I turned to about 15 of our peers and I said, "Look what just happened." I laughed again and I ran away. If that's not mental illness, then what is?
Yes.
But how did I get like that? I like to say I was made in America. At 12 years old, when I began to sell crack cocaine on the street corner, I didn't learn that in the streets. This was an education I got in the household. It was common for me to see crack cocaine being cooked up and utilized. It was common for me to see garbage bags of money being counted and various firearms laying around. That was my reality before 12 years old. So when I went to the street to cause chaos and confusion, only in the pursuit of happiness, no one had a problem with it, except the police. But when I was arrested on July 24th of the year 2000, and I waited in Plymouth County for 3.5 years before I was tried and convicted of second-degree murder, I only wish that the judge, the DA, my lawyer, would have did a small investigation on my life. When they convicted me to second-degree life in prison, I understand that. But did they know at 9 years old I used to walk in my house to watch my mother shoot heroin? Nobody knew. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. Did they know that I've been to every prison, state prison in Massachusetts before the age of 5 years old, with my diaper stuffed with mescaline, heroin, weed, and then you name it. To sneak in to see my father, did they know that when they sentenced me? They didn't know that. So who they sentenced was a young black traumatized kid who really didn't know any better. What do you mean? The Bible says, my people will suffer from a lack of what? Knowledge. What knowledge? For me, it was the knowledge of myself. I had 16 years in, I was in the prison yard doing my daily exercise. 16 years, y'all. I came in, I was in the shower. I heard my name with a loudspeaker. McNair, report to the caseworker's office. I got out the shower. I went to the cell. I dried off. When I knocked on the caseworker's door, she instructed me to come in. She says, McNair, come in and shut the door behind you. I'm not sure if anyone in here has been in prison, but if you have, whenever a caseworker, a minister, or a deacon summons you to their office and asks you to close the door, two things are about to happen. You're about to be informed that you're going to be transferred out of the institution, or you're going to be informed that someone died in your family. On this fateful day, this most painful day, I was informed that my mother was found the night before by my little brother in her bed dead from a fentanyl overdose. There was no calling an ambulance. There was no resuscitation. She was dead with the needle in her arm. I could not be vulnerable, and I could not show weakness. So what I did what I always do. I just internalized it, buried it, and held on to it. Till today, I have not mourned my mom's death. But I'm not done. I had 24 days to re-enter society. After spending 20 years of my life incarcerated, my auntie came to see me on a non-visiting day. On this day, I was informed that the night before, my little brother was found dead on the side of a sober house in Brockton from a fentanyl overdose. The same little brother who found our mother dead, he had one sneaker on, a brand new Air Force One black. The other sneaker was never found. They said it was never found because my little brother was dropped off there, pulled out of the car, and the sneaker remained inside the car. I'm here to say this. Yes, I have ran a few trap houses. I started them and I ran them. I have poisoned my community with heroin and violence. Poverty is violence. Where did the poverty come from? Peace.
Peace. And by the way, what you see here, I wore this for 20 years. And I'll never let the world forget. For 20 years I wore these. My daughters won't talk to me today. I couldn't go to my mom's funeral. I couldn't go to my little brother's funeral because of this right here. So every time I speak, the new person is Unkl V. I'll be at Ashmore Station. I'll be at various high schools. I'll be on Methadone Mile, Madison Cast. I'll be everywhere with this on and these handcuffs. But when you see me, just know I'm speaking for my mother, my little brother, and so many millions of lives who have lost to fentanyl. We don't hear it no more. And I'm going to end on this.
I was tried and convicted for murder. I paid my price. Who is going to pay the price for murdering my mother and brother? I got smoke with y'all. Y'all sentenced me for my crimes. Who killed my mother and brother? Peace. Here's their death certificates right here. Here's their death certificates. My mother and little brother. Fentanyl overdoses. Peace, y'all. Thank you, G.
Thank you so much for the compelling story. Now, the next person I'm going to bring up, and this is really obvious.